Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast.
Why, thank
your
you so
favorite
much.
podcast.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Oh, that's fine. Wow, you really caught me off guard there. That's the first time I think you've ever done that on a show. We have 2.5 hosts today. The two sitting across from me, proverbially, are the two.
Yeah.
And I'm the half because I'm sick. I'm sick, guys. You know what the worst thing in the world is? Well, not the worst thing in the world, but you know what's bad?
Being sick.
Being sick, but also, when you're sick in the winter, you're like, this kind of makes sense. When you're sick in the summer, you're like, what is this? I want a refund. The weather's beautiful, and I'm sick. Like, what about vitamin D? Isn't that supposed to help? The sun's out all the time.
Yeah, but don't you hermit in the summertime and avoid the D?
I mean, I don't think that's true.
I thought you play most of your video games in the summertime.
Boy, well, wait to hear my What Are You Up To Wednesday update, because it's gonna bear out your point. I don't know. That's actually a really good question. I don't know when I play more video games. I mean, I'm sure you're probably thinking back to the times, my grad student times, when the summer was just inherently less busy. So I did a lot more gaming then. I don't know how this summer's going to go. But what I can tell you is that my nose is running. So for those that want like a visual...
You better go catch it.
That's good stuff. A visual, we don't do a video podcast. So just imagine someone with their nose running, talking. And you're most of the way there. We're talking about the worst named event in all of media today. Tudum. I still hate that. I complained about it last year. I'm complaining about it again. It's terrible. We went to watch trailers. We have a fun weekly tradition here at our house now where I turn on YouTube. My wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have to watch trailers for the podcast. She's like, I guess I'll watch with you. And I looked up the first one and she was like, what is that an acronym for? And I was like, you tell me, because it's the worst. I was like, it's not an acronym. It's just a bad name for something.
It's a fantastic
It's an
name.
onomatopoeia.
I think everyone thinks of Netflix
I understand.
when they hear Tudum. I think I don't. I think you're wrong here. You're wrong here.
I see that and I'm literally like, the underwear down under. I'm trying to make an acronym out of it. And it says that, as you can hear, it doesn't tend to go well. We got some announcements for stuff. We're gonna take you through all of those.
Unbelievable display. Something movies.
Yeah, pretty close. That would be better than just calling it Tudum and because it's the hashtag. I'm looking at the hashtag right now. It's all caps. If you want the onomatopoeia, don't make it all caps because then people won't think it's an acronym. It's just bad marketing. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't defend that at all. We're going to talk about all the Netflix stuff. Don't even worry about that. But we're also going to be talking a little bit about Reddit. You've probably been hearing about Reddit in the news. If you're a Reddit user, you probably had a pretty interesting week last week. Because last week, it basically, from what I understand, I'm not a big Reddit user, but it functionally went down for 3 days. So it seems like it didn't really bring about any change. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on there. But I think we're gonna lead off with I don't even want to say it, Tudum. We're gonna lead off with Tudum and talk about Tudum for a bit.
Tudum.
Because there were a lot of announcements here, and the biggest announcement was probably One Piece, which we already knew about. Was that the biggest announcement of Tudum?
Yeah,
I want
so.
y'all's opinions.
I mean, when I was looking up all the trailers and stuff on YouTube, I think that definitely had the most views out of anything. It was upwards of 5 million views on that trailer alone. And while we knew about it, so I gotta give you guys a caveat here. I never read the manga. I'm not a One Piece fan, but this was a decent trailer. I thought it had the potential to be good based on this and not knowing anything else about the property.
I'm in the same boat as you. I know nothing about the property, and the property inherently confuses me. I don't know who this show is for, I guess. I feel like the Venn diagram, but I guess, and this is one of the most popular ones ever. It's the longest running one ever. I understand that. But when you say pirates to me, I'm not going manga or anime or anything like that. So it's just to me, it's a very interesting, and it's probably what makes it so good and so popular is that it's a very interesting combination of things.
Well, I think that's why it has potential. I don't think you need to be a fan of the original property to get the gist of what it is. It's a pirate show.
So I've watched One Piece the same way that I'd watch Full House. I never watched it sequentially, but I'd catch episodes here and there, and it's entertaining. The thing about One Piece is the different pirates that they come across on their adventure are very, very diverse. They look all sorts of different ways, have all sorts of different abilities, and it's almost in the same vein of when a show is so fantastic and extravagant and cartoonish, it doesn't play well in the real life scene.
Yes.
And you're
touching on a point that I was going to make, which is that it looks too too kooky.
That's the thing that gets me nervous about this. They
Oh, you
only
guys look too kooky.
they only showed his stretchy arm, which like that's like okay, maybe yeah, but like they're literally towering like giant people pirates. There are it's gonna become very ridiculous, and I don't think it's gonna last long once they get into that. If they kept it what they saying, where everyone's kind of this normal average human sized person and they don't have all of these like exaggerated features, then I think it could work. But
let me provide a counterpoint. And I don't know why I'm feeling the desire to defend One Piece, which I have no attachment to. But like you're saying live action pirates with fantastical elements is not going to work. That's the basic thrust of your thesis. Pirates of the Caribbean that's my whole counter argument.
Pirates of the Caribbean, it didn't have. I mean, if you want to compare this to this, it's Pirates of the Caribbean basically meets Marvel. If you
Pirates of the Caribbean. I think like, and I love Pirates of the Caribbean, but I also have not seen 4 or 5, and if there's a 6th one, I haven't seen that one either.
Don't get me wrong. I hope this does well, but I've seen, Netflix also did Death Note, which that's a lot more grounded. The whole premise of Death Note is he has a book that he writes names in, and those people die. It's this, there's a whole anime based on it, but it's not like a crazy stretch, and that didn't work out. And so
they also did Cowboy Bebop, which I think got canceled after the first season.
Yeah,
the track record's not great, is what you're saying.
I get nervous about this, and then there's been other like independent of what Netflix has tried. There's been other there was the Dragon Ball Z movie, there was the Avatar: Last Airbender movie. Both of those flopped.
Well, to be fair, the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie, like that may not as well have even read the source material. It was that bad.
It seemed once in a lifetime bad. I don't have any, again, something I have no connection to the source material. I did not see that movie, but everything I've heard about it is that they like went out of their way to make a bad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the general concern you're voicing is reasonable, which is how have we cracked the code of translating anime to live action?
Do you know why I like animes? It's not because of the story. It's because of the art styles. It's because of the way that the creators of the show express their unique talent. That's why.
Yeah. So can you extricate the story of, like, I'm sure the story of One Piece and of countless other manga, like the story has standalone value, but how easy is it to extricate the story from the medium?
I would definitely
I think is a very valid question.
That One Piece has a better chance because it's a pirate adventure at its heart, right?
But see, that's like I have to take issue with that because like I think watching this trailer, however long it was, let's say it was 2 minutes long, I think a minute and a half of it looked like a pirate adventure, and then the other 30 seconds was Mr. Fantastic and like weird clown pirate. Like I think. Well,
that's what I was going off with the different people they come across.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the market. But like, people are going to see certain things about One Piece and be like, it's a pirate adventure. I'm in for that. They're going to turn on one episode. They're going to see him wrap his arm 16 times around a giant clown pirate and be like, well, that was weird. I'm never coming back. Like, I don't know what the audience is. That's kind of where I started with this. And like, I still don't know. The audience is probably, like you said, fans of the manga, but like,
they're going to very quickly be like, they didn't stay true to this, or they butchered that. I mean, there's tons of moments in that show where it's just absolutely heartfelt. There's this one that comes to mind specifically where you saw the guy with the green hair. He literally sacrifices himself for his friends, and it's just like, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. And they're just not going to, I think they have to be able to keep it fun and silly because that's what the show is, but also keep it grounded. And that's just a tough thing to do. And then now you're adding the mix of trying to keep it live action, and I get nervous. I'm going to try it. I'm going to definitely try it. I'm going to give it a ride, but very nervous.
Tonally, is it going, like, yeah, I think overtly it's trying to be funny and lighthearted, and then there's like 2 or 3 characters that are clearly taking themselves very seriously, and that's a tough tightrope to walk. And that's a buddy thing that's done in all sorts of different shows, right? There's always the pair, but it's hard to get right,
and then the gruff. You know,
I just think I think it's hard to get right, and don't know if I've seen any, like, having no connection to the source material, I don't know that I'm showing up for this. And also, the other factor that we have not made any mention of is the idea that, like, Netflix might take this off their platform, like, 3 episodes in. We just have, like, I have no sense of safety with Netflix as a brand. So, you know, and that kind of leads into my overarching issue with so much of what I saw from Tudum is, and it's a pervasive movie and television show problem right now, more so a movie problem, where every movie that's being made right now is made to be a franchise. Why would I trust Netflix to hang with anything to be a franchise? Like, their track record right now is bad, and the track record of almost every streaming service in that regard is bad. So
I think,
why should I trust you? Is kind of what I'm saying to myself as I'm watching all of these things. A lot of which, by the way, don't look very good.
I think this is a good opportunity, though, to pivot to Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Sure, the floor is yours.
And the reason why I say that is because, yes, I just said the transition from cartoon to live action gets me nervous. And I even mentioned that Avatar: The Last Airbender movie had failed in the past. However, this one does not scare me. We've gotten an insight of the cast. Every single one of those castings looks perfect. Looks absolutely perfect. We don't know who Toph is yet, because Toph is going to come in season 2. But I think they're going to nail it again. The actor that plays Uncle Iroh is Paul Soon Hyung Lee, and we've seen him in The Mandalorian. We've seen him in Kim's Convenience. Everyone loves him, and he is perfect casting for Uncle Iroh. And they've been spot on with it. And as long as they can continue that, we've gotten sneak previews of, like, the way the combat's looking through different studios that are helping them do that. And it's just so far, based on what we've seen, it's already orders of magnitude above what we got with the movie.
And that's cool, but to Illeagle's point, so Avatar is probably one of my most beloved franchises and IPs at the moment. How do I trust Netflix to not cancel this after 1 season? And then why would I watch this versus just rewatching the animated version?
What they're banking on is, well, if you don't trust us, watch it, because we're going to keep it on if people watch it. So
the thing that gets me nervous is staying true to the source material. And the way that they've announced how they're rolling it out, with book 1 being water, book 2 being earth, that's already been laid flat. So we know that they're going to at least stay true to that chronological, or that order of events. And so that makes me feel confident that they're going to stay as close to the source material as possible. And that's the key to being successful. Just don't make notes. Just, like, Control C, wait for it, Control V, mint.
What they have going for them here is that I think The Last Airbender is a more generally well-known IP, and right now, especially in terms of live action, the bar could not be lower.
Also, the characters, while they have elemental abilities, they're not these super overly cartoonish characters. And that's the thing that got me nervous about One Piece. They're all normal people, but they have these just elemental abilities. That's something that I think would translate well into the live action.
Yeah, I think, not to go back to One Piece, but I do not think Avatar will have the same potential tonal confusion that I think One Piece will have. And I think that's probably to Avatar's benefit. So if you were to ask me which of these I think is more likely to succeed, I would certainly say The Last Airbender. But The Last Airbender, we have also seen a lot less about in general. So there's more to come on that. It's not out until 2024. One Piece, I believe, is coming later this year. I can't remember. I'm scrolling trying to find the date, but I can't quite see it. Let's move away from anime and let's talk about again, I'm trying to go in order of, like, quote unquote importance. Heart of Stone felt like it got one of the bigger kind of roll out the red carpet moments. And it's worth noting, we had seen a trailer for Heart of Stone before this. Mm-hmm. This was more of I guess I'll call it a story trailer. We got a better idea of what the story of this movie is.
One of the things that's really interesting to me is I feel like Netflix has become the home, and I know you like action movies, so don't be offended by the way I'm about to phrase this, but it's become the home of, like, the throwaway summer action blockbuster. Because do you remember how probably even like 5 years ago, and say there's like a solid 20-year window almost, every summer there were, like, not bad, but overall somewhat forgettable action movies that would come out every summer? It feels like those have stopped hitting theaters, and now they're all just going to Netflix. And they're so high budget, I don't know how Netflix is affording them.
Well, and that touches on another point of like, again, and they have some good things going in that arena. They announced Extraction 3 at Tudum, and I think Extraction 2 is like about to come out or just came out.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
think
a very
it just
successful
came out, right?
And that's like Chris Hemsworth. That is Chris Hemsworth vehicle. It's doing very well for itself. They're clearly trying to do the same sort of thing with Heart of Stone. I think I do buy Gal Gadot here. I'm not interested. I wanted to be interested for this one.
See,
but I don't know that I am.
I thought this looked good, but my main problem is you can already tell what the whole plot of it is. It's classic spy movie, and then there was someone who was internal to that facility betrayed. Like, you already know. And they didn't say it explicitly. They showed a new villain, but you really know that there was someone else that, like, duped the facility, and there was betrayal. And it's like, okay, everything, they show too much is really what happened.
Okay, but hear me out. Isn't that more or less the basic plot to most
every
action
Mission
movies?
Impossible movie?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't watch Mission Impossible. I don't like them because it's like, okay, I know exactly what happened. I don't need to waste 2 hours of my life.
But a lot of people do for flashy set pieces and fun action.
Yes. Here's one of the problems. Here's one of the things this movie is up against, is that the basic plot, and it's produced by people who made Mission Impossible, and that kind of shows the basic plot is ripped directly out of a Mission Impossible movie. And what they have to fight against is, I'm a huge Mission Impossible fan. I can pretty much guarantee you that the new mission that's coming out and the mission that came out a couple years ago is going to be better than this. So why am I going to sit down and watch this?
Because it's free. Because you have Netflix already and you're like, okay, this is free. Let's watch this.
Yeah, but my time isn't free. And this market, to me, has already been cornered.
Has it, though? Because aside from Mission Impossible, what else is coming out?
That's exactly my point. Nothing is, because nothing can do as good. Like, I think that if you want to make an action movie, fine, but you need to distance yourself from Mission in some way.
I mean,
I think part of the reason the market is dried out is because of what you're saying, which is like Mission. There's no movies like Mission being made because Mission is Mission. And like, there aren't really a lot of movies like James Bond because James Bond is James Bond. I don't know. It's interesting because there's other sectors of the entertainment market where things are just getting more and more saturated. Superhero content is just getting more and more saturated. It's never slowing down, even though there's so many people fighting over that space.
See, I would argue that it is kind of smart to get back into the action movie space because let's be real, the Mission movies, and I know you love them, but Tom Cruise in those movies, and I get he does a lot of the stunts himself.
He's old as heck.
But yeah, I'm not buying them anymore. Like, I barely bought into them. To me, all action movies, and this is probably terrible, and people who love action movies, come at me. I get it. They're all largely the same. They all kind of merge together in my head. I could not even tell you the plot of a Mission Impossible movie, because all action movies are largely forgettable. And I'm not going to see them for some great story. I'm going to see them because it's a popcorn movie that I can turn my brain off and look at like pretty explosions and action. And nobody other than Tom Cruise is doing that right now. And I think it is a miss.
Yeah.
I think people are tired of superhero movies, but if you want action, there's nowhere else to turn to. Mission
Impossible understands that. They understand, like, if you read about the production cycle of Mission Impossible movie, they don't even have the script written until they start shooting. What they do is they location scout. They find a big rock for Tom Cruise to jump off of, and they're like, we'll do a scene there. Then they say, we'll do a scene in Paris where he's in a car chase, and they write the story around it. People don't go to Mission Impossible movies, myself included. They do not go to Mission Impossible movies for the plot, because like you guys were both saying, the plot of all those movies is exactly the same. Like, they're just doing the same thing over and over again, but they keep raising the stakes on the stunts and the production value, and that's what gets me interested, or I guess retains my interest. I think there's a way to do an action movie, but making it a globetrotting movie where you're part of some elite team that then someone goes rogue and you have to get this little heart back, it's just too Mission Impossible. I think you need an action movie more like, I would say the Bourne movies are, while they're still globetrotting, if you watch a Bourne movie, they're totally different than Mission Impossible. Their stunts they're not stunt driven. Like, I would love more movies like that. This looks like, okay, they're trying to make kind of Mission Impossible, and I'm just not as interested in that. The action movie market is wide open. I totally agree with you on that.
Well, there's Mission Impossible, and then there's Fast 23.
Yeah, well, yeah, Fast 10. That's fast movies are action movies, and they're again a very specific thing. But like, there's a lot of space in that market. I honestly think a big problem with it is, again, every movie has to be a franchise now. You can't make a self-contained action movie anymore. And this is not a self-contained action movie. This is, we're setting up a franchise with Gal Gadot.
See,
and it's very transparently that to me.
This is, I guess, a broader conversation point here. But
yeah,
who is determining that it has to be a franchise, though? Is it moviegoers, or is it just shareholders and executives who don't understand the landscape of movies right now?
Well, it's shareholders and executives, and I would argue they do understand the landscape of movies. The reason they keep doing it is because it keeps making them money. I just wish they wouldn't do it.
But that's because there's nothing else competing. Like,
Sure.
I used to go see all of those mindless action movies. Now the option's taken away, so of course I'm not going to see them, and I'm just channeling all of my movie-going energy into the franchises that are available, but I'm not given the option.
If you listen to, because I listened to a couple of different podcasts about movies, and in particular, a lot of them are about old movies. I think I mentioned the Rewatchables on a recent episode of this show as being a podcast I'm listening to a lot lately. If you listen to movie podcasts, most of them feel like we are in a dark age of movies right now. And most of them will say that we're in a dark age of movies right now because intimate one-off movies aren't being made anymore. And if you go back to some of the better movies of the 80s and the 90s and even the 2000s to some extent, there's a lot of movies that are like that. And then this gross franchiseification of every single movie came along, and we haven't been the same since, and we haven't gone back. And to me, Tudum is like a major symptom of that disease. Like, what was the most self-contained thing we saw at Tudum in terms of movies? I don't even know.
Probably the 3-body problem, maybe?
That's based off
part of a multi-book series.
Is it?
Yeah.
What was the Snyder movie? Dark Moon? That's
a reasonable example.
That's a new one, but you don't know that they're going to franchise it yet.
I'm sure they would like to. If they're getting Zack Snyder on board, I doubt Zack Snyder is saying, I'm going to write one movie and walk away. I think, and that, you know, with that in mind, the problem may not just be shareholders and executives. It may be people like Zack Snyder and these larger than life people who are like, I'll make a movie for you, but I have to make 10 movies for you.
Well, because we don't have
if you want me to make one.
We don't have movie producers anymore. We have world builders. That's what we have now. That's the biggest difference.
The other thing that I think is feeding into this problem in some way, although it's hard for me to really say how, I would argue that the era of the movie star is maybe over. If you think about...
I disagree. I mean...
Who's the biggest movie star right now?
It's Tom, Spidey Man.
I don't think so.
Tom Holland?
He hasn't made like a
movie
movie since... No, I guess Cherry, but that wasn't like a theatrical release.
You guys think he's petered out since Uncharted?
Cherry did badly. Uncharted did mid. He just came out with an Apple TV thing that is getting universally panned. Like, I don't think it's him. I like him a lot. I think the answer I was expecting you to say was The Rock. I think most people would say The Rock and Kevin Hart are like quote unquote movie stars, but I guess I just don't. They're not capable of. Think about Will
Florence
Smith
Pugh is approaching, critical movie star status. I guess if you could call
Reaching
it that.
critical mass.
Think about like Will Smith in the late 90s, early 2000s, and think about Tom Cruise around the same time. They could make a movie happen just because they were in it. They could just carry a movie, and it would be a movie like I Am Legend, which was not intended to be a franchise.
But I Am Legend also
happened.
had fantastic writing. Like I think you're selling the writer short.
But by that definition, then I'm also going to double down on my Florence Pugh answer.
Based on which movie?
What was the Olivia Wilde movie? Don't Worry, Darling. That literally the only reason that people were going to see that, even though it was getting panned, was because she was in it. And critics were saying that her performance was worthy of going to see a bad movie. And it drove people to theaters just to watch her.
It's a good answer. I saw it, and I saw it in some part because of her. And yes, it was a bad movie. So your argument holds up based on my personal anecdote.
That being said, there aren't a lot of people like that left. Like, there's not an actor who shows up in a movie and I'm like, okay, because of this actor alone, I have to go watch this movie. Those are fewer and far between.
People went to see I Am Legend because Will Smith was in it, and like people went, like, I can't think of a Tom Cruise example. There's probably about 1,000. Like, there was a stretch where he was making movies where people would go to see the movie simply because he was in it, and we don't have that anymore. And I don't know if I feel like that's part of the problem. Is you can't just say, hey, I'm going to write a Will Smith movie that's going to be this one movie and it's going to make $1 jillion and then I'm going to walk away. It's a lot of franchises are rightfully so for monetary reasons, focused on getting someone young that no one has heard of and saying, I'm going to put you in this role and we're going to hope this turns into a franchise and makes you an enormous star.
The J-Law effect.
Sure, exactly. But it's not the same thing. And
I mean, I guess there's another example though. Jennifer Lawrence, up until like probably I would say the last 5-10 years when her, I guess, roles just, not that they've petered out, but she like actively decided to take a little bit of a break. I mean, she was somebody who
she was
in a
example,
movie,
yeah.
you would go see it.
She was big in Silver Linings Playbook. She's actually currently
There's a movie
trying
coming
to
out,
plot
right?
her comeback. Yeah, No Hard Feelings, which is like, it's trying to call back to the raunchy comedies of, again, like the early 2000s. It's trying to be one of those, and she's headlining it, and it's kind of being billed that way, and I think very smartly so, of like, this is a movie, this is going to be a one-off raunchy comedy movie that she is in, and like, go see it with no expectations. And like, that makes me want to see it. You know,
okay,
like
I have one more example. Now, you gave me a challenge, and now like I've been racking my brain.
No, this is fun.
Seth Rogen probably is another one as well. I know he's a little bit older.
He's
than
not
your
a big
typical...
star right now.
I would not say that. I mean,
his time came and went. His time was Knocked Up,
Really?
and Pineapple Express.
because I would say some of the stuff that
time.
he's doing now, and I know he's kind of leaning more into series and stuff, but even that terrible pickle movie, I would not have watched that if not for him being in it.
He's doing things now that he's in a phase of his career, and I like Seth Rogen very much. He's in a phase of his career, and that pickle movie is a great example of he's going to do what he wants to do, whether or not it's good. And I don't begrudge him that, but I don't know that I would call him a movie star right now. I do think that, again, like Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin, all that during like the Apatow phase, he was huge, and he could draw people to a movie, and I think that was his quote unquote movie star time. But Tudum is just so devoid of that. To kind of try and bring us back to Tudum, like, it's devoid of anything like that. It's all franchise content or attempted franchise content. The Three Body Problem looks kind of interesting, but I'm jaded now, and I'm seeing right through it to what Netflix is trying to do, and
But then
it feels cheap.
It looks cool though. I do agree that they're definitely trying to franchise it now that I'm remembering it in more detail, because that's the one by the Game of Thrones showrunners. So like they're definitely trying to turn that into a franchise for sure. But I mean, it seemed cool. I don't know. At least it's a fresh story, and it's not just another superhero show. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take it.
The IP there is very, very strong. That much I will say about. I haven't read them, but what I've heard about them, the IP is extremely strong. So I would certainly say that has a fighting chance. Yeah, I mean, is there anything else you guys want to mention from Tudum that I haven't mentioned that looked like a big deal? We kind of touched on Rebel Moon a little bit.
I mean, Rebel Moon looked cool, but I don't trust Zack Snyder to make a movie shorter than 4 hours at this point.
And this is why I said we don't know that that's going to be franchised. He's not making. This isn't a movie. This is a world. He is building. I honestly thought this was. I Googled this and I was like, is this some kind of like world that takes place in the Halo universe? Like, what is this? And it's going to be a multi-movie, I don't want to say mess, but a multi-movie conglomeration of stuff, because it's a universe. It's a galaxy. You can't just cram one standalone movie and call it a day. And I don't think that's his jam.
Well, and the to be honest, I didn't. If there was a trailer before Tudum, I didn't watch it. I watched the behind the scenes look at Tudum, which was a bad way to be introduced to this movie, because I think the first words that were said in that behind the scenes look, they were interviewing an actor. I don't know the guy's name. He was the guy who was Ajax in Deadpool 1 or Deadpool 2. I can't remember which Deadpool. And the first thing he said was, I didn't know movies could be this big. And I know that's intended to get me interested, but nothing could have turned me off faster than that. I was like, I don't want that. Like, I just don't want big things like that anymore. I want something self-contained. I want something that's more interesting than, hey, this is the first movie of a 4-movie thing that Zack Snyder's doing, where every movie's 3 hours long and it's about aliens fighting superheroes. I don't want that. Like, if I want that, I'll go back to Marvel, first of all. And I don't want that. I don't know. It's just, I think it's very easy to look at this slate of content and be like, Netflix, what are you doing, baby? Also, they need to lean harder into reality content, in my opinion. But that's a totally different animal and not really what we're talking about. But we did get some more Love is Blind content, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that come September.
I'm sure they're going to be pumping out.
Want to.
They're going to be pumping out tons of Love is Blind content so long as the writer's strike goes.
There's probably going to be another shadow drop season between now and the one that they teased that is coming out in September. So yeah, I guess I don't really know what to expect with Love is Blind, but really what you should expect is more of the same thing, because it's very cheap to produce and typically very entertaining. I have to give it credit. What did you like about Tudum or in Tudum, let us know. At OW Illeagle 86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber, and our main show account at Online Warriors 1. That's how to reach us on Twitter. One of our Twitter followers, Mr. Stephen Keller, who also happens to be our Patreon producer, made me very sad this week on Twitter. Did you guys see this?
Oh yeah, he called you out about Metroid.
I made a major gaffe. And I'll own that. I'll come on the air and I'll admit my mistake. I think I was manifesting and like wish fulfillmenting that like the Metroid Prime remaster would it be a Metroid Prime trilogy remaster, and it's not. And Steven very dutifully was listening last week and heard me say that and was like, "Hey, Leo 86, you're wrong about that." That's what you guys could all have if you came on Twitter and interacted with us. You could tell me I'm wrong about things. You'd probably get an opportunity to do so at least once a week. I'm sure I've already given someone like 4 or 5 opportunities to say, "Hey, you were wrong about this thing that you said." Could be you. So again, hit us up on Twitter and hit us up on Patreon. Steven supports us on Patreon. He's gotten to know us, so he can hit me up on Twitter and tell me I'm wrong about stuff. And he is a producer on the show, so he gets this weekly shout out. He also, of course, gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. He gets input into the weekly game segment, which I will be hosting later against all odds. And he gets all of those things as a result of his night level support on Patreon. He also gets the occasional guest spot on the show. So you want to be a knight, you want to head over to Patreon and support us at that highest level. But there's also a Squire level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and a page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. All of the details on all of those levels of support can be found over at patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast. Go say hi to Steven, say hi to us, and consider giving back to the show, help us keep the mics on, keep this thing rolling right along. Thanks again to Steven. We will take a quick break, come back to talk about Reddit.
Online Warrior podcast listeners, I want to take a few seconds of your time just to promote Xbox Tavern's podcast. It's an Xbox-centric podcast with news, reviews, as well as the 5 of us talking about all things Xbox. We're from the UK, would love to get in your ears. Search Xbox Tavern on your best podcast app. And you can also head over to xboxtavern.com where we've got our latest reviews as well as some opinion pieces. Go check it out. Now, back to the show.
All right, so let's talk about Reddit. In particular, what I want to know is how often do you guys use Reddit? Because there was a time in my life that I was a daily Reddit user, and by that I mean a daily Reddit lurker. That is no longer the case for me.
Why?
But I just don't have the time, to be perfectly honest with you. I would spend a lot of time scrolling Reddit, and now I spend that time scrolling Twitter.
When you're
I'm evolving.
when you're like developing code or anything like that, the questions generally can become so arbitrary that Reddit is the only thing that Google picks up.
Yeah, I will happen upon a Reddit post to help like solve a problem or answer a question. That certainly happens to me. I wouldn't say regularly, but every so often it happens. But I'm talking about just like general Reddit scrolling, not looking for anything, just kind of like seeing what's going on.
I have like a handful of subreddits. I have like 5 that I go to regularly. And I probably check in on not all of them every day, but throughout the week, I'll check in on at least most of them. I try. There are a few. Well, no, like of the 5, there's probably like 1 or 2 that fall to the bottom of the barrel. So if I don't have time, like I spend no time there. But I have like 5 that I regularly visit. It's really good for like sports news and discussion. I find that Reddit.
Yes.
I mean, obviously Twitter is also like very fast breaking on sports topics. But if you're like honed in on a specific team and you just want to get to the gist of it right away, very, very good place to find your breaking news sports stories.
And the lifeblood of Reddit, like Twitter, I don't know. I don't know that comments are the most important thing on Twitter, but they are definitely the most important things. One of the most important aspects of Reddit, reading comment threads and getting insight from people. People will write entire paragraphs on Reddit. And on Twitter, you'll get like 2 or 3 words.
One of my
favorite
favorite
I think that's
things,
an important aspect.
Like new team signings in like the NHL or the NFL or trades or something like that. And like I try to keep a pretty good tab on players that aren't even on my team around the league in terms of hockey and football at least, baseball, soccer, I don't follow those, whatever. But if I don't really know a player that well, going to the comments, like there are people who will give you a very thorough, like 10-paragraph analysis of the last 5 years of that guy's play. And it's fantastic. You can't get that anywhere else.
Let me ask you a follow-on question, Illeagle. Why should our listeners care about Reddit right now?
Reddit is going through some stuff. That's kind of the broad strokes of it. So Reddit has announced a fairly large API pricing jump. So basically, the way third parties can use Reddit, the cost just went up dramatically. And from what I've read about it, they haven't given very good reasons for the prices going up other than just, we want money and we should have done this a long time ago and we haven't, and we don't like third parties. We would rather people use our apps exclusively, essentially. As a result, a lot of subreddits, I don't have a percentage exactly, but like a lot of subreddits, more than 300, went dark. From June 12th to 14th, they essentially said, you can't get on our subreddits. Essentially, the lifeblood of Reddit, the entire community shut down. And to my knowledge right now, there may be some that are still not back. Some subreddits remain dark past the 48-hour window because it didn't seem like the darkness was really having much of an effect. I don't know. I don't have the knowledge to understand what may come out of this, but it's worth noting that there's a pretty big shakeup going on over there.
I think what's going to come out of this is they're going to pivot. If they need to make more money, they're going to pivot to advertisement type things that aren't affecting the users. Because the other side of it is, and I want to give a shout out to moderators, right? The main reason that Reddit runs so well is because all of these moderators putting in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of free work to make sure that everyone's following the rules, make sure that their pages isn't filled with junk. And they're doing it at no cost to Reddit. And so if those people feel that their community is getting slighted, why would they continue?
Well, I think part of it too was a lot of the third-party, apps that were using the Reddit API were mod tools. So it's effectively making the work that they're doing for free 10,000 times harder because now they either have to pay more to use those tools, or some of those tools went dark because they weren't willing to pay the extra cost.
Yeah, it's. And another one of the reasons I kind of wanted to bring all this up is that I think Reddit is one of those things, and Twitter is another one that we've kind of gotten an inside look at during the shifts that have happened over the past year and a half to 2 years or however long it's been. I think it's very easy to go on a site like that and take what you see and what you experience for granted a little bit. And there's an ecosystem at play here that it's probably hard to understand until you get involved in it. And the free labor of moderation is like a huge part of what makes Reddit and what keeps it spinning. And to threaten that in any way just feels like a pretty bad move. It's I don't know what will come out of this, but it's probably not going to be good. I'm honestly surprised Reddit itself has not backed down yet. I also don't understand how Reddit is supposed to make money otherwise, to be honest with you. It's hard to imagine these things as... Yeah, but like I don't see that many ads on Reddit. Like there's I'm sure
ads,
you're right.
There's sponsored, and you probably don't even realize it because they're so inoffensive in a lot of instances that you don't notice it. But as you're scrolling through a subreddit, some of the posts, especially near the top of the page, are just sponsored posts. And I think subconsciously you realize, okay, that's not relevant. So you just scroll past it. There's a lot of that. Yeah,
like Twitter and Instagram advertising feels obtrusive for sure. Reddit's, because I'm sure you're right, but I guess it must just for some reason to me feel a lot more minimally invasive in that I don't even really notice it. But I think I just wanted to spare a moment for like thinking about how these websites work, what the ecosystem is, and when you threaten that, entire like millions of users worth of community can just completely go dark. And as of this recording, I don't think we have a resolution. I'm sure I'll hear about it when it happens, but I don't know. Pour one out for Reddit. It's I don't even know who to feel sorry for. I think I feel sorry for the moderators. I don't think I feel sorry for Reddit itself at all. Though I wasn't an AMA, but like the announcement made by the people in charge at Reddit that they were raising the API prices was very, very poorly received, and a lot of the justifications that I read for why it was a bad idea seemed pretty reasonable. There's typically two sides to every coin, but I don't know really what the other side looks like in this case. So shout out to Reddit. It also briefly crashed last Monday because all the subreddits went down. So stability issues as well, potentially. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But in the meantime, let's get into what are you up to Wednesday. Let's find out what we've been up to. Let me start with Nerdbomber this week. Nerdbomber, what have you been up to?
Oh boy. Well, we finished Twilight. So I think last week we had only watched the first 2 movies. So since then, we have watched the 3 remaining movies. We had some rough weather in the last week, so, gave us a lot of downtime to finish our trek through Forks, Washington, and, checking on Bella and the creepy CGI baby. I guess I remembered them being worse overall than they really were. Like, aside from the first movie and some very obviously bad CGI.
It seems like you really enjoyed it.
It wasn't as bad as I remembered. Yeah, like it was relatively entertaining. And I don't know if that speaks to movies today not being as good, or if I just like fed into the social critique of Twilight being cringy and bad altogether, but it really wasn't that bad.
I wouldn't call it documenting, but I've been posting about it on the social medias. And the feedback with even people asking questions has been, I remember it being worse, but you're right, it really wasn't as bad. And it's even like the not only from like the quality standpoint, but there were like these moments in the show where they were deemed cringy or gross, and they really weren't that cringy or that gross. They were just kind of like, it fit in with the story. They narrated it away. It makes sense. Chill out, folks.
Everyone just relax.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's great.
That has been a pretty big thing. And then, honestly, just kind of chilling. I feel like Twilight took up a lot of our time, and that was kind of it for me. Not very exciting this week, I know, but, sometimes it is what it is.
How dare you? How dare you? Well, Techtic, was it just Twilight for you too, or did you find yourself getting up to anything else?
I'm boring. It was either Twilight or working on my Game Boy game. And I mean, that's coming along great. I finally figured out layering backgrounds to have tiled surfaces where the image file can recognize between what is a platform and what is a platform. So that's coming along pretty well. And next is the hero sprites that I'll get to figure out how to design. So it's coming along.
Make me look pretty.
No.
Make me look pretty, please.
I haven't figured out what I can make you guys look like. Right now, everyone is just a ball. That's what I've been doing to play with the controls. So, ball.
Can I be a pretty ball?
Well, keep us updated. Yeah, sparkly or something.
Sparkly like a Twilight vampire.
Batman.
Sometimes in What Are You Up To Wednesday, someone has to carry the team and have done some stuff. And this week, I guess that's me. I want to talk about Silo, the show.
Oh, you started watching it?
We did start watching Silo. We're only one episode in, so there's not a whole lot that I can say. I will say Rashida Jones, pretty good. That's like something that I wasn't expecting. So, and this isn't really a spoiler. It's just like how the show works. Rebecca Ferguson, who I believe plays the lead character, or like one of the most important characters, is not introduced until like the last 2 seconds of episode 1 of the show. So I haven't really met her yet, but met a sheriff and his wife, the wife being played by Rashida Jones. And the first episode is really about her, and it's compelling. It's Apple TV, in my experience. I don't think they've missed with me yet, and it seems like they're not going to with this one either. It just seems like something I could easily get very, very engrossed in. So I'll continue to update on that, how that show's going as we work our way through it, but
Please
definitely going to
do.
be continuing past episode 1.
Because you know how I always get on my soapbox about how there's so many good new IPs that could be mined out of books? Bro, this is one of them. I'm so excited that they actually adapted this for TV. So
It's certainly being mined right now,
is it
and to great effect.
is the season out in its entirety yet, or are there still a few more weeks left before it's all released?
So I don't know, because I get scared. Like I'm not gonna scroll through the episodes because I don't want spoilers in the little what's the episode about.
That's fair.
So I don't actually know. You'll have to investigate that for yourself, I guess. But that's ongoing. The other major thing, I guess, is I finished the Metroid Prime remaster, and as Steven mentioned on Twitter, found out that there wasn't any more. So that was kind of upsetting. I managed a 93% completion, I believe, just under 10 hours.
That's really impressive. You should be proud of yourself.
I played this game so many times at this point. A lot of it was muscle memory, so I'm not feeling an immense amount of pride, but it was a lot of fun. It holds up. I would recommend it to anyone. Nothing surprising about my experience with it, other than that it was just really, really good. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me, to be honest. I know I was supposed to carry the team, but I'm not going to do that at this point. Okay, well, that brings us to Quiztown. And I'm the conductor on the train to Quiztown this week.
Sure.
I'm taking us not just to Quiztown, I'm taking us to Zendayasville, if I may.
Hey, we were
all know
just talking
Zendaya.
about movie stars. There you go.
Zendaya, has she helmed a movie, though?
She will helm Dune. And I believe she's got a new movie coming out, Challengers.
So Dune is going to come up in this trivia, actually. And actually, why don't we start with that question? So this is going to be a classical Price is Right style You guys know the drill. Each of you gets either an answer of 1 or a +1. You get one of those during this whole thing. The quiz tracking, the quiz scores. Techtic at 6 and 5. I'm at 6 and 8. Nerdbomber at 5 and 8. Steven 3-0. Congrats to Steven. So it's a dead heat. There's a lot on the line here. Let's dive right into our Zendaya quiz. Techtic, you will answer first since you have the better record. Zendaya is in Dune. That's true. Dune is a 2 hour and 35-minute long movie. During how many minutes of that movie is Zendaya on screen?
This was only 23 minutes.
It was less than that. It was like abysmally less. She was in barely any of this movie. I'm going to say 6 minutes.
Okay, very good guess by Nerdbomber. 7 minutes. So you almost busted,
So
actually,
close to
with the 6 minutes. But you're on the board. It is 1-0. Now let's get a little bit more traditional with the questions. How old is Zendaya? The units here are years. How old in years is Zendaya? And we're going to swing it over to Nerdbomber first for this one.
I want to say she's 23.
And Techtic.
She's 24.
+1 is
That's
already
the
used.
+1. To great effect. She is 26 years old.
Damn.
This is one of those
I
things.
almost went with 26, but then I was like, nah, she can't be that old yet.
And not to out us as old, but I'm reaching that point in life, not to derail the quiz, but like when people are younger than me, it's starting to upset me. And it's happening a lot. And look, she's younger than me. And yes, that bothers me.
See, I just
I just want to put that out there.
what gets me, and it's probably because too, I watched Euphoria after it had already been out a bit, but that's my last memory of her. That and Spider-Man, and in both of these roles, she's playing high school students. But obviously, she is much older than that.
Shout out to Tobey Maguire playing a high school student at like literally age 30. The next question's about Euphoria, so it's funny you should mention that. Both seasons 1 and 2 of Euphoria have the same Rotten Tomatoes critic score. What is it?
This was 83%.
I feel like it's higher. I feel like this is a 90. I feel like critics and audience members loved the show pretty equally.
Well, it is certified fresh, but it only has 80.
Oh, so we both busted.
You both busted, so no points on this one. It's actually interesting. Both of the seasons themselves are 80, but there were a couple of one-off specials, both of which, I think there's 2 of them, both are well into the 90s. So the one-off
those are
specials seem
good.
to do better. But yeah, no points. You guys are both, it's 1-1. You're both on the board. How many Instagram followers does Zendaya have? And Nerdbomber, you are first on this one.
I'm going to say 3 million.
I think it's actually less than that. I think it's, let's say 10,000.
How about 183 million?
Okay, well, I got the
Holy
3 part right.
Smokes.
Instagram is a big deal these days, and she's a big deal of a person. So 183 million sounds about right to me. I don't follow her on Instagram, but I also don't really follow much of anyone on Instagram. So I'm not really good.
That was my
He
basis
doesn't even
estimate.
follow
I said
me
I
on
don't follow her, so it must not be a lot of people.
Nerdbomber jumps ahead, and we are now on to the last question. Techtic, you need to get this, and then if you do, I'm going to have to look up a tiebreaker, and it's going to be very awkward. Zendaya's TV debut occurred on the Disney Channel show Shake It Up, where she played Rocky Blue. This show was on the air starting in 2010. How many episodes of this show were made? And Techtic, you will go first.
There were actually a surprising amount of episodes of this show. There was actually 73 episodes.
I feel like that's wrong. I feel like this one only got 1 season. I'm going to say 1 just to give myself the biggest range.
You should have +1 him. I have to look up a tiebreaker. 75
Really?
episodes. You got it almost
come
exactly right.
on.
So if you would have +1, you would have had literally like almost the best possible answer. So now, this is a texting question. Zendaya also is a fairly well accomplished musician. One of the things she did musically was in the soundtrack for the movie The Greatest Showman. She and Zac Efron did a duet on a song called Rewrite the Stars, which is a bop. What's the runtime of that song? We're looking for minutes and seconds here, just because I don't really feel like doing math. Okay, I have the results. We do have a winner. We have a guess of 246 and a guess of 234.
Oh, wow, that's close.
337 was the answer, so
Yeah,
Nerdbomber
baby.
takes this one
Here we
by the
go.
skin of her teeth and moves the rankings ever closer. We now all have 6 wins. Nerdbomber and I, as it happens, have the same exact record of 6 and 8.
Oh, she's
Techtic
making a
moves to
comeback.
6 and 6. So really, it's anyone's game right now. Next week, Nerdbomber, you will host, and we'll see if we can shunt Techtic down towards last place. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys all so much for coming by, hanging out with us, listening to us talk about Tudum and about Reddit. and about Zendaya. If you liked what you listened to, you can head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review there. If you didn't like what you listened to, you can also head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review there. We look forward to getting your feedback. Head over to patreon.com and consider giving back to the show if you're a fan, if you're a longtime fan, if you're a first-time fan, doesn't really matter which. Say hi to us, say hi to our producer, Mr. Stephen Keller, and have a great day today, and stay safe, and keep on podcasting.